Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hello, folks. Welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. In fact, we have a special guest. Eventually, I'm going to stop calling her a special guest because, she's going to be appearing with us with some of her thoughts as a Georgia activist quite often. So before I get to the show, I just want to bring her on screen so that she can introduce herself. Tamara Shealey, ¿cómo estás? How are you doing today?
Hi, Egberto. Hi, family. How are you?
We're all doing fine, my friend. Look, we have some important topics to discuss today, including the topics of the Democratic Party, including which both of us agree on, but we are also going to discuss things that we don't agree on. Things like, what is that kind of a thing that you've been doing?
Withhold the vote.
That you're in. What is it called?
Withhold the vote.
We are going to talk about that, and we are going to disagree about that. But what we're going to show people is that those of us that are progressives, we can actually have disagreements in policy, disagreements in how things are done. But the most important things that we remember is that we are on the same team. And when you're on the same team, you always know that you have folks who are going to be there watching your back. Did I put that about right, or did I say that all wrong? You correct me, my dear.
You're right. We're not going to always agree, but yes, we are on the same team. I think ultimately we want the same things. We just got to, we may have different paths to getting there, but we ultimately want the same thing.
One of the other things that I always say, Tamara, is that, there are no geniuses in the business of politics. Absolutely no geniuses in the business of politics. And that is where I think there's usually a big fail. And the big fail generally turns out to be that everybody thinks they're absolutely right, and as such, they don't listen to anything else anybody has to say. Mm-hmm. In my now later years, what I've learned is, no, I intend to listen. So I want you to tell our audience your point of view when we get to that point, and then I'll discuss my point of view and tell you why I disagree with you. And you know what? The thing about it is, I think we all should go ahead and follow these paths and see where they lead. And it may turn out that a combination of them all is what actually gets the job done. But I'm gonna put you off for a second here and go into the show, and then we'll come back to you. You are the first half of the show, Tamara. So we'll take care of doing that, okay?
All righty.
All right, folks. Today we are going to have a great show for you today. The show is titled, "Here is Proof That the Free Market Healthcare is a Fraud and Belongs in the Commons." And what do I mean by that? We're going to talk about that in the second half of the show, but we are going to first start with Tamara. Subtitle of the show: When Corporations Tell You That Free Market Healthcare Depends on Them Keeping You Sick, You Should Believe Them. Did they really say that? Is it possible that some corporation or some group of corporations or some group of analysts are really going to go out there and confess and tell you, you know what? There ain't any dollars. There's no money in keeping you healthy. And if the plutocracy, if the American business model depends on keeping you sick, then what do you think they're going to do? They're going to keep you sick. So, subtitle: When Corporations Tell You That Free Market Healthcare Depends on Them Keeping You Sick, You Should Believe Them. That is what they do. Now, today we will discuss why free market healthcare is nothing but a fraud. We will also have a special guest, Tamara Shealey, discussing the Democratic Party and charges that need to be made. What we're going to do is the blog of the week will be read in the second half of the show. And so what we'll do right now is we'll go ahead and start talking about the Democratic Party with Tamara, and we'll also talk about her concept of voting, or in her parlance, with holding the vote. Tamara Shealey, welcome aboard.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Egberto, and thank you, Politics Done Right family. We're going to all get there together, Egberto. Like you say, there's no magic formula. There's no one way. I think you're right, and there's a combination of ways to a victory.
Absolutely so, and I think one of the reasons I think sometimes progressives have a hard time winning is that we are so consumed and we're so passionate about the things that we do. Sometimes we fail to see the other side, and that is what one of the missions of Politics Done Right is, to tell folks exactly that. I am like I tell Black Lives Matter, I tell Swing Left, I tell Indivisible, I tell everybody, even when they are having their spats in between, I am the ally of everyone, just like I'm pretty sure as an activist that's been activated for quite a while. I saw the beginnings of your activation back at Netroots, I think Netroots 2016 or 15, I believe.
2015, I believe.
2015, and man, did an activist they made. Anyhow, let's talk about Democratic Party. You have a severe beef with the Democratic Party, and that is partially why you, I think you sort of came up with the program Withhold the Vote. So let's discuss those two things in context, and if I had that wrong, correct me.
Yeah, no, you got it right. I do have a beef with the Democratic Party. My beef is not just personal. My beef is watching what is, the abuse of the Black vote. I believe that we just, that's a vote that is taken for granted. And we tend to vote Democratic. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to make us any promises. They just have to sing us serenade us and tell us some, what they want to do that they don't end up doing. And we keep running to the polls and we're not voting our interests as Black and brown people. And I'm tired. And this year I took a very bold step, and I did not vote in the 2018 general election. I did not vote. And I'm very proud to say I did not vote. And that was my power. And I exercised my power in not voting. And I withheld my vote from the Democratic Party in protest because Black and brown people are taken for granted.
Now, Tamara, before I go into the voting part, I think it's a good thing. It would be a good thing for folks who are listening now to sort of explain what occurred in your race. First of all, you, from the time that I met you, 2015, I believe, you were a candidate. You had just gotten off running as a candidate in District 40, running for Senate in Georgia, and you had just lost that election. And the one thing that you can, and by the way, you're in a district that is really a plus R district. So that was a district that needed nurturing if it was ever to turn blue or purple, for that matter.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I watched you for 4 years, I believe, nurture that district, and you ran 3 times in that district, each time increasing the percentage, bringing it close to victory. And welcome aboard all those newcomers. Welcome aboard Michael Rudnin, Kathleen Morgan, and everybody else that I can't miss because of the scroll. But so why don't you tell us a little bit about that? Because I think what the party did in the primaries 2018 was disastrous. So why don't you put it in your words?
Well, it was definitely a disaster. So I ran in 2014. My district was gerrymandered, and it's been heavily Republican for a very long time. They knew where the numbers were, and it was a hard, tough district. The senator that was there definitely needed to go. He had made enough waves where Republicans were starting to kind of look at him and not be happy with him, as well as Democrats. So the opportunity was there to push the envelope in 2014, and I did. I came out of the gate, no name candidate, but with a lot of passion, a lot of heart for my district, a lot of great ideas. Ran in 2014, won my primary in 2014. Did not win the general election, of course. Got 37% of the votes, a no-name candidate. Ran again. I was committed to to my district. I've been committed to serving in my district. Ran again in 2016. Did not have a primary, but garnered 43.8% in the district. Got a bit closer the second time around. 2018 rolls around. We have Donald Trump in the White House. You know, it's a whole different dynamic happening. Netroots comes to Atlanta. And that's a part of the story, Egberto, I don't think you and I have talked about. But Netroots, which is where you and I met, came to Atlanta and really rocked the boat. Everything that happened here needed to happen. I was right there in the front of it. I actually was sitting like steps behind the protest that happened. There was a protest with Stacey Evans. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. Stacey Evans was protested. Stacey Abrams was on the ticket. It was during that primary. It got pretty heated because I think a lot of people, you know, didn't really know what Netroots was all about and how this group of activists from around the country come and they come to a place and if it's something, some sort of root to something, they're going to expose that root. And the root of our issues here in the state of Georgia has been race, racism, and race relations, hands down. And those of us that are born and bred, I'm born and bred Georgian, and we don't have those conversations to the extent that we need to. So when Netroots came here, I promise you, they exposed it all. I took a lot of heat from that because I was, you know, I was there and I was in the forefront and I filmed it, and you know, they didn't like the fact that I was standing up to the race issues that we have here in Georgia. So 2018 rolls around and I get primaried in the Democratic Party openly. There were people, current legislators and people openly supporting the other candidate that was running against me in Senate District 40. And that was the part where
I want to interrupt you because I think it's important for people to understand one of the reasons that you were primaried. I don't think you were primaried because of what you did at Netroots, but I think you're primaried because you had already prepared that district for a Democratic win.
It was twofold. It was twofold, Egberto. I was primaried because I'd already nurtured the district. You're right. It was right. It was right. It was ready for the picking. It was, you know, like I said, Donald Trump in the office. It's time. The needle is going to move this time around. But then I also, you know, it was an opportunity for the other person. Her name is Sally Harrell. To get into the race, and she did. She got into the race, and she knew that white women and white people in the district, if they had to choose between a black woman and a white woman, they were not going to choose me. And she used that to her advantage. So she didn't have to make any promises to her black and brown constituency. She didn't even have to go out and knock on those doors. She didn't have to do anything to garner that support during the primary, because she knew that if she was able to get enough white votes during the primary, that she would beat me. And she did. Two out of three voters voted for her. She didn't have to make any promises to the black and brown community. So when now Stacey Abrams is on the top of the ticket here in 2018 during the general election, she still didn't have to do anything, because guess what we did as black and brown people? We voted straight down ticket and we voted Democratic, and she won. So it was an opportunity.
In effect, I think what you're saying in effect is, people were telling me that my audio needed to go up a little bit more. So folks on Facebook, you can tell me my audio is enough now. Anyhow, I think what you're telling me then is that after she ran, she actually won that district that you nurtured for 3 terms. Is that correct? And did that, and she did that under the auspices of the Democratic Party.
Yep. And the Democratic Party openly, so there was major support from the Democratic Party, and it was open. It was, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. She was more electable. I mean, she's a white woman in a predominantly white district. I'm a black woman in this district. And like I said, when it came to the general election, I mean, the numbers have proven that 3 out of 4 white women voted for Brian Kemp. They did not vote for Stacey Abrams. Across Georgia, 3 out of 4, 76% of white women voted for Brian Kemp. They did not.
I don't think it's only white women, though. I think it's white people in general went for in Georgia and that is sort of an issue. I think that's reigned across the entire South right now in the voting patterns and in some of the Midwestern districts. I mean, which is something that I do think we need to mitigate. How we do that, those are certain things that I hope to work on. Now
We can't do it, Egberto. You and I, as people of color, and those of us with that's, we can't do it. We've said this. We've been saying this for generations. We can't do it. This work is the work of our white allies. This is their work. And if you want to talk about how this can be remedied, white people have to call out other white people. White people have to rein in other white people. This is not our work.
Now I've written about that, and it's actually what I say. It's actually dual work. I tell people that I sit down with a whole lot of times, and I tell them straight up. I said, when things come out of my mouth, it has a different timbre than when it comes out of yours, and that's why you have allies. So you're correct about that. But our part, we also have a very important part in that, and that is to give directions. And let me give an example. There are certain times that your white ally may be out there doing the things that they need to do, but when they're representing you or representing your issues or issues particular to you, they don't themselves get it, because not because you are progressive means that you understand a Latino, or that you understand a Japonés, or that you understand a black person or whatever. So let me give a quick personal story, and this had to do, I remember calling you one time. I was out there in Washington DC, and I had an issue with some of the women in the Move to Amend group, and there's something that they said that I did. I didn't realize it. They claimed it was sexist. So what I did is I went ahead and called all the professional women that I knew and asked them, "Was this sexist? Was this sexist?" And your response was, "Hell no, not to me." So in effect, what I'm trying to say is, there are times your job is to help those people. Your job, when I had that sexist problem in DC, was to tell me, well, if I screwed up, this is what you did as a male. But if you didn't, also, maybe those folks were a little bit too sensitive. And that is a job I'm talking about when I say, when you say it is their issue to solve, I'm with you, but I also say, and we have to be there in support, because they don't know themselves all the issues.
So you're saying basically we have to kind of help navigate the process with them.
Exactly.
And I agree with that. We actually do. I do a broadcast on Fridays. We'll actually be restarting it again in January.
We need to advertise that. Tell people how to get it, because I watch your broadcast on the on that show, and in fact, that's how I knew today we were going to talk about voting, and we're going to definitely disagree on that. And so, tell them about that show.
Well, we do a broadcast every Friday. We actually took a break because we've done it from the primary up until the general. So we've taken a break until the new year, but we do a broadcast every Friday at 11 a.m. And it's specific to racism, race relations, but all things Georgia. I have a white co-host, an older gentleman. His name is David. And I have a beautiful young Latina woman. Her name is Robbie. And the three of us have this conversation specific to Georgia, and then the race issues that we face. And, I just think that, we definitely have to help our white allies in this process. But I really believe the majority of the work is theirs, because they understand their white counterparts to an extent that they have to reach to them in a way that we never will be able to. So I'm going to help. And we have a Facebook page called Acknowledge the Divide. And this is a page where it's specific to our white audience. And we just share stories that show you where the divide is.
Interestingly, I interviewed a group. I don't remember the name of the group, the two women, but they formed a Facebook group, and the idea is whenever these are two white women that I interviewed who formed a group, and gosh, I should have had that video out here. And what they do is exactly what you're saying. They are there. They said that they are there as an intermediary to answer these questions and to set things straight, because there's a lot of issues that people don't understand. I have friends that I'm sitting down with, and sometimes, I live in Starbucks, and they'll say certain things, and I'll let them finish and kindly, you know how I operate. I'll kindly stop them and I'll say, do you realize that, it went over with me without an issue. But if you do that in certain ambiances, it wouldn't be quite that way. Here is what you did. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't quite get that. And what I'm saying is you need a whole lot of people that are able to do that. that are able to break down those fear barriers. Because what I always talk about, if you have a scab, right, you can have a cut, and that cut, the skin over that cut heals very well, but underneath there's that infection that's festering. What I think is that we have to do, and this is where I say we have to be helpful. It's not about being right or wrong. It's about getting a solution. And if we are not helpful, there ain't no solution, because a lot of times your allies also don't know what's going on. And that's all I'm trying to say.
And I'm encouraged by like the younger generation, because they get it. They're more interactive with each other, and they understand each other's cultures a whole lot better with this younger generation. So I get encouraged. I think we still have a lot of work to do. I think that honestly, our older generations, and that's just across the board, black, white. I just think some of these people just kind of, I hate to say it, that they just have to die out. And I think,
That's what my nephew said. My nephew said that all that. One time he came over here. He's married to this a white woman, and he comes to me and he said, Tio, I'm going to tell you something. A lot of us, what we're waiting for? And I'm like, what, man? He says, for all you guys to die out.
Well, I'm hope to be in that generation that's able to stick around and see this thing kind of manifest. Well, I don't want to die out too soon, though.
Well, no, I don't think he meant me. He meant most of the crabbit folks that don't really get it die out. So I get exactly what he's saying, and I look at the way my daughter interact with folk. My daughter is what when I call a multicultural girl, that's what she is. She can go into any environment, any country. She goes into Panama and she's a Panamanian. She's here in the States. She's a black American. She can act out any way she wants. And just watching her interact, it's like, that's my daughter, all right. So I think we're getting there, Tamara. But let's talk about something else now. The vote.
Mm-hmm.
I am in complete disagreement with you, and I listened to your show on Friday, I think it was, where you talk, and I really try to put myself in you. I try to say, let me be you. When I say let me be you, I mean going through the tribulations you had with the Democratic Party, going through what they did to you, going through all of that. And I did that because I said, okay, maybe she's just pissed off. And then it wasn't that you were just pissed off. It's just that you believe that.
Mm-hmm.
You actually believe that there is a reason to withhold the vote.
Oh, absolutely. I think we have to.
Wait, hold on a second. I want you to first tell people what's in it withholding the vote so that I can then disagree with you.
Oh, you want to disagree with me, Egberto? I want you to agree with me, hopefully at some point.
Okay.
But Withhold the Vote is an initiative that we started right after the primary, when I realized that this initiative around my race was race. It was a race that and it played out beautifully
in our own party.
And she won. She won. And I congratulated her on this broadcast the last time you had me on as a guest. But I wanted her to understand that congratulation is yours and mine, because you didn't get there on your own, and you actually stole what you have. That's America's history. She stole it. And guess what? It's yours. But I'm not going to forget. And I think I have to hold on to some of that, because there's this part of me, I'm a Christian woman, and there's this part of me that says, turn the other cheek, forgive and forget. I'm going to forgive, but I will not forget. So Withhold the Vote is an initiative for us to hold accountable our elected officials and our candidates moving forward on the issues that affect Black and Brown communities. If we don't see initiatives around jobs and housing and education and the economics of the Black and Brown community, we don't see solid initiatives and some solid advancement. And if we see you do anything that takes away or harms the Black and Brown community, we're coming for those seats, and we're coming for you, and we're going to withhold the vote. So this initiative, Sally Harrell is the poster child, but we will be moving forward. We will be looking at, and this is specific to Georgia politics, we'll be looking at every Democrat and of course Republicans anybody that is not working to advance the Black and brown community and help us as a people, we're going to withhold the vote.
Okay, now let me, I want to read something that Rudnan said. He says, please read this. He says, not voting is surrender, not protest. If you were to protest the Democratic Party, if you want to protest the Democratic Party, vote third party. Your answer?
No, we are Democrats, and I'm not trying to, shy away from the fact. I know where my heart is. I'm a Democrat. I know. I'm very clear. I'm clear about that. But we want to hold this party accountable to our issues. This party can no longer just, like I say, the Black and brown vote. You can't take it for granted any longer. You can't just expect us to continue to vote for you. This has to be the civil rights movement 2.0. And I go back to people shaming and making people feel guilty about not voting. You know what? Yes, people died for the right for us to have this right to vote. I respect that wholeheartedly. I get that, but we have to get beyond this emotional, the voting emotionally. I have to vote Democratic. Not every Democrat has our interest at heart. We have to get past that. This is the civil rights movement 2.0, and we're thinkers. We're going to think our way to the next level now. Every Democrat can't have my vote. And if this Democrat is not on the right page, we will not be voting for that Democrat.
You had me for a while, and let me tell you where you had me. Let me tell you where you had me, and then I'm gonna tell you where you don't have me.
I know this is hard.
Wait, hold on. You had me where you said that if the Democrat that is coming in that you're to vote for doesn't have a plan to make your life better, then you're withholding the vote for that Democrat. My concern is the movement may go as far as saying withhold the vote, period. And I hope that's not what you're saying. In other words, let me tell you what I mean, okay? And this is where I had the concern with you. I think if I understand you correctly, you didn't vote at all.
I did not vote at all in the general election. Absolutely not.
And my question to you is this: were there any local races that had good people that deserved your vote?
Honestly. I looked at it holistically. Mm-hmm. I looked at this as a holistic approach, and this was my personal protest. Mm-hmm. This was personal. That's why I didn't tell anybody before, because I didn't want to influence anybody. I didn't want to have any bearings on it because it was very personal for me not to do it. But moving forward, now that we're beyond these elections, we will have all the reasons in the world because we're going to follow the bills. We're going to follow the initiatives. We're going to follow the candidates. You're not going to just feed us these candidates and say, okay, this is your Democratic candidate, vote for him. Absolutely not.
Okay, Tamara, now my question is, but you're going to be selective. In other words, you may not vote for a bad senator, but you may vote for a good councilman. Is that correct?
Absolutely. If somebody chooses not to vote the way I did, that is their power and that is their choice. We don't guilt you. We don't shame you. I took a very radical approach. Like I said, I did not tell anybody. I didn't do anything. I didn't say anything out loud until after the election, because I didn't want it to look like it was anything. Like I said, it was very personal. It was my personal choice not to do it because I know what I know that's happening inside the Democratic Party, and I personally could not vote for anybody.
For any Democrat because of what you know that you would have been complicit in the entire scenario. I get that.
But let me say this, Egberto. I did support candidates on the broadcast. There were candidates that we had on our broadcast. We talked about the races. I did support people on the broadcast. I just made a personal decision not to participate this time.
Now, going forward, because it is a movement that you're building, a statewide movement that you're building in Georgia. And my question is, as you are informing people about candidates, you are not trying to get folks to simply blanket not vote, but you're trying to get folks to vote appropriately for the appropriate candidate, not necessarily a Democrat, but I mean, if you had a progressive Republican that's running, that has a program that is going to create, like when the young lady, the young Latina that was on your show, she was talking about a particular region or a particular, I guess it was a recreation center or something that didn't get taken care of as promised. Well, she held those people accountable.
Yes, she made her decision based on her local representation.
Right.
She realized that a lot of her local, all her local representatives weren't serving the community where she lived, and then they aligned themselves with those at the top of the ticket, and she just couldn't participate in that as well. And she and we found out later on that both of us were on the same page with our thinking. So,
well, I am. I wanted to disagree with you a bit more than I am. But I guess in that I disagree with your total vote, but that is personal. The fact that you didn't try to create a movement to simply not go out and vote at all is what I was concerned about. So those concerns are assuaged, and so I get that. And I think actually I think that is important. I think it is important for folks, as you said earlier, to not just assume they're going to have your vote. Everybody should have to come and earn your vote. So
absolutely,
I'm with you there. Well, look, Tamara, we're at the half hour of the show, and I need to get on to the medical portion of the show. But again, Tamara is going to be visiting with us every other week or so with new things that she's doing, because now that she's not going to be serving on the 40th district in Georgia as senator, she'll have more time for the activism that I knew her for back in 2015, 2016, 2017, and 2018. So you're back on the road again.
Amen.
Before we close this segment out with you, tell us a little bit about what you have planned for the next few months.
Well, we have we've gotten some our ducks in a row, and we're going to be watching every bill that comes through the Georgia legislature. We're going to start monitoring and tracking legislation and these legislators. And like I said, we're going to hold each and every one of them accountable. So we're going to have a lot of efforts around monitoring what's happening right here, right here in Georgia. And I think that becomes everybody's responsibility.
Tell them, how do you monitor those things? How do you get to, because a lot of these things they try to do in quiet silence. How do you help the general public know how to go about doing that?
Well, we actually have a bill tracking mechanism. We are utilizing technology via a corporation. So we have we put it all together so that we can be specific to Georgia legislature. So I can definitely give you if you want some more further information, reach out to me. I'm at Tamara Shealey. For those of you that are interested in how we're tracking bills and using a bill tracker that we purchased. So,
Tamara, before you go, it seems like we have a caller. So let me see what the caller has to say. If it's towards you or not. Caller, come on in, 802.
Hello, I just tuned in, so I'm not really sure what you're talking about.
Oh, okay. We'll get back with you. I think I'm hearing an echo that I have to take care of, but anyhow, we'll get back to you. Oops, that's the wrong one there. Let me get there on the click. There we go. We'll get back to you, my friend from 802, because we're going to the medical segment. So Tamara, look, first of all, I want to thank you for being here again. We'll see you in a couple weeks or so. Let us know what what are the new things that you're doing out there. Keep up doing what you're doing. I think it's important work, and you know what? It's all going to pay off in the long run. Absolutely,
absolutely. Thank you, Egberto, for having me on the broadcast. Thank you, Politics Done Right family. Look forward to being back with you in a couple weeks.
Thank you for being here, Tamara. Have a great one.
You too.
Excellent. Okay, folks, second part of the show is going to be read this stuff to the back of me. I'm going to try to get my darn picture out of there because I want you guys to see that. Read that. That is what they said. That is what a analyst at Goldman Sachs had to say. That is what he had to say. Goldman Sachs, as a biotech research, is ensuring a patient is securing a patient a sustainable business model. I mean, I had to reread that. And by the way, this happened a while back. This isn't new. I came about this because there's one of my followers who sent me this image in my inbox this morning. And I didn't do any research or anything in the beginning. I just went ahead and answered her back and said, hey, where did you get this from? Is this real? And somehow I missed it. How the hell did I do that? But I missed it. I didn't see when that story broke. It was on CNBC. Not only was it on CNBC, but Lee Camp from RT, the station that everybody's scared of, he carried the program as well, and I missed it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the blog of the week, and then we're going to get right into my thoughts on this. So here we go.
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay, folks, here is the weekly blog post. It's called "Here is Why Free Market Healthcare Must Keep You Sick." And it's a short one today. It has always been clear to me that free market healthcare is a failure. It is a danger to your personal economy, your health, and your survival. Many see statements like these as hyperbole. You know what? It is not. When titans of finance tell you this in no uncertain terms, maybe you should listen. The words of the free market healthcare industry pointed out in no uncertain terms that the patient is not that important. It's green that matters. Lo verde es lo que es importante. Green. It's just green. The interesting thing about it is that they are not even hiding it. CNBC reported the following. Goldman Sachs analysts attempted to address a touchy subject for biotech companies, especially those involved in pioneering gene therapy treatment cures could be bad for business in the long run. Is curing patients a sustainable business model? Analysts asked on April 10th in a report, The Genome Revolution. The potential to deliver one-shot cures is one of the most attractive aspects of gene therapy, genetically engineered cell therapy, and gene editing. However, such treatments offer a very different outlook with regard to recurring revenue versus chronic therapies. See how these people are talking? These people are talking as if, healthcare, if you're thinking about healthcare as a business, these guys are doing the right thing because we have healthcare as a business model. We talk about let free markets take care of the healthcare system. I hate what these guys are saying. I hate it, but they're right. If we as people, if we as Americans allow that, they're right. So I continue. While this proposition carries tremendous value for patients and society, see, they're admitting it. It's great for society that we could actually develop things that cure. Here's a downside. It could represent a challenge for genome medicine developers looking for sustained cash flow. There is sustained cash flow in doing right. It's called taxes, not pilfering money from people with the expectations of making a profit. Think about it. This article went on to point out a reality about curing hepatitis C and its impact on corporate profits, since curing it would mean fewer people getting infected. I want you to listen to how this is framed. I really, really want you to listen to how this is framed. GILD is in a case in point where the success of its GILD is a company who make the hepatitis C drug, where the success of its hepatitis C franchise has gradually exhausted the available pool of treatable patients. You see, they are just cogs in the wheel, man. They are just patients. They're just something to make money off of. It's no love. It's nothing like that. It's not we're trying to do the right thing. Where the success of its hepatitis C franchise has gradually exhausted the available pool of treatable patients. The analyst wrote, in the case of infectious diseases such as hepatitis C, curing existing patients also decreases the number of carriers able to transmit the virus to new patients. Thus, the incident pool also declines. So what would they do? Have somebody start infecting mosquitoes with hepatitis that can create more patients so they can make more money? Do you get the absurdity of having healthcare as a for-profit system as in the free market? Where incident pool remains stable, e.g. cancer. You ever wonder why certain cancers there's really no cure? There's no reason to have a cure. We want a steady flow of people. So here's what they say about cancer now. Where an incident pool remains stable, e.g. cancer, as an example, cancer, the potential for a cure poses less risk to the sustainability of the franchise. Wow. So we want sick people, man. Is there any doubt that free market healthcare only applies to cures that ensure continued cash flow to corporations? It is clear that free market healthcare is a failure and that moneyed interests and are vested in not having cures for diseases lest their bottom line is affected. And so is the blog of the week. Folks, do you understand the evil within what I just read? Do you get it? Do you get why many times we talk about learning as a society, how to create different spaces? There are certain things that belong in I don't like to call it the free market because it's not really a free market. There are certain things that belong in free enterprise, where we decide the things that we want to build. Do I want to build a car? Do I want to build a boat? Do I want to build things, right? That's not necessarily always necessary. But there are also things that belong in the commons. In other words, where the profit motive is not something that we're looking for. And why is that? This is a classic example. If a business understands that whatever it creates has a limited time span, and that limited time span means a loss of revenue, then they don't do it. So you have to ask yourself about a lot of markets, right? Like I've always asked myself, why is battery technology so bad? Battery technology is bad because it doesn't need to be good. It's a recurring bill. But who cares, right? Because after all, you don't need a battery. Some solar cells get more efficient. Portable solar cells get more efficient. You'll see how quickly batteries get more efficient, right? But when it comes to healthcare, man, and somebody tells you, well, as a business model, if we find a cure for X, Y, Z, we lose money. It doesn't even matter to these people if, they recover their development costs. And so what if eventually you only need a little bit of the drug because the pool drops? That's not how they think. That's not what capitalism is all about. It's all about a constant profit making, a constant growth. And here's a mathematical fact. The mathematical fact is that is not sustainable. The mathematical fact is that it dies on its own weight. The mathematical fact is that it transfers wealth to a few because the few continues to grow at a faster rate than the others. And since it's only one economy, if one group in that one economy is growing faster than the rest, it means that one group is taken from everybody else. I wish people understood these concepts. And the reason these concepts are important is because unless we get them, we continue to make the same mistakes. We continue to accept the same kinds of crap that they tell us. We continue over and over and over again to be fooled by what they say. And the truth of the matter, folks, is healthcare does not belong in the free market. And this is a classic case. Now, this story came out a while back, right? And like I said, in my case, I didn't find it, but one of my followers sent it to me today, and it changed what the second story was going to be today. I always knew that I was going to have Tamara on today, but I had another subject that I wanted to tackle today. But why? When she sent that and I couldn't, I'm like, oh, somebody actually said it out loud? It's not like we didn't really have, we couldn't surmise this, right? but somebody said it out loud. Let me bring the caller in. Caller from 802. Let's see. Come on in. Oops. I got to get that.
Yes, hello. This is your libertarian.
Hey, my favorite libertarian. Talk to me.
Hey, have you ever heard of the tragedy of the commons?
Talk to me about it.
The tragedy of the commons is the idea that when, for example, say you have a commonly owned group of land that's being grazed upon by cattle or something like that, all the farmers, they're not disincentivized to preserve that. If they get their cattle to go on and graze all the land and take all the resources, strip them out before everybody else can, that benefits them and puts them ahead of everybody else.
Okay.
So in that sense, you're advocating for healthcare to be commonly owned, to be commonly given to everyone, and there's no if it's being given to people for free, there's no incentive for people to conserve. People are taking ambulances to the hospital for a Tylenol because it's free for them that way.
So that's what you think we're advocating?
That's the effect of what you're advocating.
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, first of all, the good thing about this, right, is since we are what I call the troglodytes in healthcare, we know that there are other countries that are implementing this, and this is one of the reasons. I have a story that's going to drop on Sunday at Daily Kos. I hope everybody read it because I use a paragraph on healthcare as an example. The story that you just gave, right, sounds plausible. It really does. And that's a story that most Republicans have been given here, right? They have to find a reason to justify why supporting an evil policy like I just read in the blog of the week is okay, because somehow the commons, because people are going to get it for free, somehow it's going to be abused, etc. First of all, it's not free at all. Secondly, there are parameters that you put in there to mitigate overuse, etc., etc., etc. So, I mean, it's not like we're going to operate in some sort of a vacuum. But here's the biggest kicker. There are countries who are already doing it, and what they prove is that behavior is not the case. Human behavior isn't, I want to just go to a hospital when I get a cut. There are hypochondriacs in the world. But then there are also the opposites of hypochondriacs in the world. There are some people, if they have a scratch, they'll go to the doctor. And there are some people, they'll have pus dripping out of their flesh, and they still won't go to a doctor. Those are the two extremes. But the average person gets no fun in going to a doctor's office. So they are not going to do that. And how do we know that? England. How do we know that? Canada. How do we know that? France. How do we know that? Sweden. All these folks have some level of healthcare in the commons, some more so than the next. England has the most devoted to the commons as far as having healthcare in the commons, and they are so underfunded and still not spending near the kinds of money per capita that we spend. Still, their outcomes are orders of magnitude better than ours. So how do you explain that?
I'd like to say, first of all, there are lots of countries that have socialized healthcare, and it seems to work out okay over there. But here's the thing: is that the United States, the U.S. military spends more than the next 7 countries combined on their military.
Sure.
We're paying to be the policemen around the world for everybody else. We're subsidizing their
okay. Let me ask you a question about that, because I think
themselves.
you sort of changed the subject on me right there, my dear friend. One has nothing to do with the other, right? In other words, we don't have to talk about the military, because what I'm telling you is keeping the overpriced military that we have right now. If we went to single payer healthcare as it is, we would actually reduce our total expenditures. Most of our expenditures goes into the pockets of a whole lot of people, a whole lot of rich people. The excess profits go into if you doubt it, after Obamacare was passed, insurance companies got rich and the shareholders made a whole ton of money. That is excess money that could have been put more into healthcare, don't you think?
Sure.
No, I'm asking. I'm saying if you take a look at where the money is going, you can see that there's over 20% profit margin in healthcare. that is money that could otherwise be used to cure people, in my humble opinion. And my thing is, I mean, we're paying for it anyway. Why not pay for it? Why not get a single payer, the government, or if you want to have an institute that does it, a nonprofit institute that takes it over. If you just think the government is not going to do it right, I don't see how our model can possibly be defended. Your thoughts?
I'll grant you that it may be more efficient. It may be cheaper to have socialized healthcare than what we have now. Kind of like having a universal basic income would be more streamlined and cut down some of the bureaucracy in the welfare state, lead to a reduction in cost. But as a libertarian, I'm going to argue from principle and not from effect, as I've said on previous shows.
I get it.
Right. What was it? Oh, you mentioned earlier, just to change topic slightly, you mentioned earlier that that medical companies have cures, but they're not giving them out because it's cheaper.
No. I didn't say that I knew.
You have maintenance medication.
No, I didn't say that I knew that for a fact. If that is what you got, I apologize. I'm not trying to say that I know of companies who have cures that have held them back because of the money. I don't know that for a fact. I am saying that based on what this analyst has said, that is in fact the next step. Either if they produce something that's going to create, let me give an example. Let's say that we create, let's say I'm a genome company and also have a cancer, a drug, some sort of a chemical drug that, keep cancer at bay, but doesn't necessarily cure it. And then somehow another department creates a drug that just simply cures the cancer right out. Then I can see the business making a strategic or business decision. Remember what a corporation is. The leaders or the executives of a corporation's job is to maximize the profits of their shareholders, and their fiduciary responsibility is
fiduciary responsibility, yes.
Right. So I can see them making that choice. Can't you?
Here's the thing is, say you have some kind of illness. You could be on maintenance medication for the rest of your life. You take a pill every day, or you could take one pill today and then you don't have to ever take one again.
Right.
In theory, you should be willing to pay just as much, if not more, to be cured versus the maintenance medication.
Okay.
If there was a medication that would alleviate some of the symptoms of your cancer, or you had a cure for your cancer, people would be willing to pay at least as much as the symptom saver as the cure.
Right.
They'd be willing to pay more for the cure, if anything.
Right.
So in that sense alone, a cure could make even more money for the company. There'd be even more of an incentive to go for the cure. I don't think it seems like some kind of grand conspiracy to think that they would just want to keep everybody sick and keep them on maintenance medications for the rest of their life.
I don't see how they make more. Let me give an example.
Know what I mean?
Let's say a cancer cure will cost let's say $100,000 over a lifetime, but a cancer pill, which costs as much to develop, will create a cure. And under your scenario, I think you're telling me that since that cancer, compared to what the thing that keep the cancer at bay for 10 years would do, and this one will give you a quote cure, you may want to say that it's okay for them to charge $100,000 for that one pill, right? Under your theory.
I'm saying that they could, and people would pay it.
And
regardless of morality.
That's where I'm saying.
It's not like.
That's where I'm saying it's evil, because the truth of the matter is, when it comes to healthcare, it shouldn't be what the market will bear, because it shouldn't be something in the market. And we can't determine which one of us are going to get sick. It could be that you were born with great genes and I was born with terrible genes. How is it fair in a market economy that just my illness will throw me to the dogs and mean I could never have a successful life, but because you were lucky enough to have wonderful genes, you can disguise the limit for you? We have to have an even playing field.
Now, life's not fair, right? So that's why we have an insurance policy.
You're correct about that. But here's where society comes in. Society is there to mitigate that life is not fair. And if we didn't have society, only the strong would survive. Only the physically able that could hunt their food would survive. We created societies because we value human beings and said that all humans are worthy of survival, and we take care of each other. That's what a society is.
Right, but I think you're conflating the state and society.
No, the state is
They're not
society.
necessarily the same
No,
thing.
no, they are the same thing. We, the people of the United States, and that is a concern that I have, my friend, with what the Powell Manifesto and these other things have done. They have tried to make the government some other entity. The government is we, the people, and when it stops being we, the people, it is on the people to make it we, the people again. That's what I'm saying. I know it may sound kind of altruistic, but
That
go ahead.
That's the general idea that people have.
Mm-hmm.
We the people is on the paper, but it doesn't mean that you and I are actually the government who can go around and
But we must
arbitrarily issue taxes on people and
right,
throw people in jail and
right. But
put
sir,
them in forced labor and set our own laws and everything else. You know what I mean?
yeah, let me tell you something. You and I and all other we the people need to make sure that we're the people, really. But I'm coming to the end of the call, and I'm into the end of the show, and I want to go ahead and read some of the stuff from the people on the Facebook. And look, your name was Ryan, right?
Ryan, correct. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
It's a pleasure talking to you also,
I look
Ryan.
forward
And
to
look,
calling
please
you back
keep
again in the
listening.
future.
Please keep talking. And I love to hear your perspective, because that is how we hone better policies, when we can hear from all sides. So thank you so kindly for calling, my friend. Okay, let's go. Let me go ahead and read some of the things on our page right now. I know that I have some things here that I want to get through. Michael Rudnan saw Kemp's. Let me load the previous ones. Okay, we see. I saw Kemp's ad. It's like an SNL parody of what liberals think country redneck conservative. Egberto, please read this. I did that. Why do you have to vote Democratic if some Democrats don't keep? That is correct, and I think Tamara clarified that, Kathleen. I think it would be a greater impact to encourage people to contact their elected official and express their values and what issues are important. Civic participation beyond voting. You are so right, Kathleen, and I think that is one of the things that we want to make sure and get effected. So thank you so kindly for those comments. Malka Rudnin, I remember this from April. I'll have to go and read that. Goldman Sachs, yes, exactly. I hadn't, you remember it, Rudnin? I hadn't seen it at all. So when I saw that, it made a very big impact on me. TYT covered it. Yeah, thank you, Michael. Like I said, this one just slipped by me. You can't have all the stories, or you can't get all the stories. Okay, Daniel Lado, there is a difference between theorizing and put it into practice. So tell me, Egberto, which is it? Well, I don't know that it matters. I mean, the fact of the matter is that the possibility is there, my dear friend. Michael Redden, what kind of fool would take an ambulance to the hospital to take a time? I love that one, Michael. Okay, let me go ahead and do a scroll again and see what I missed. Sometimes the when I'm reading the items from the phone, it somehow kind of craps out. Okay, let's see what else we have here. Lawrence Sims, mentoring is a must. Audio sounds better. Okay, so I guess that's when I clean things up a bit. I got that cleaned up, and okay, we're almost. Oh, I need to give a little prep here for my show here. Folks, please remember that this is a call-in show, and not only a call-in show, but this is a show that needs your support. So please remember to go to patreon.com/politics done right. Again, that is patreon.com/politics done right. Support us. It's less than the cost of a coffee. And I know if you saw me at Starbucks, you would buy me a coffee. This is to keep progressive radio on air. As a token, I'd like to tell you, I'm writing the book, How to Make America Utopia. And what am I doing with that book? I'm writing it one chapter at a time. As I release a chapter, for those of you who are subscribing at the coffee level, which is cheap, less than the price of a coffee. As I write the chapters, I'll go ahead and put it online, and you can read it as it goes. You can tell me, hey, you can put your input, and anything that I use from you, I'll cite with your permission only, of course. And again, this book is going to be sold all over. I'm a little bit behind on the second chapter because, again, there was just so much happening with this election, and I'm just catching up now. So forgive me for this delay. I will make it up to you. Bumper stickers, all of that, if you want, just drop me a line and say, I want a Politics and Right bumper sticker. I'll send it to you. And I'm going to get a few other goodies that I'm working on. And don't forget, you can still go ahead and get this. As I see it, Class Warfare, the only resort to right-wing doom. You can get this at Amazon. But by the way, I'm going to also put that online so that our subscribers can get to that book at some time. So anyhow, this is Politics Done Right. My name is Egberto Willies. I ask you to go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright, patreon.com/politicsdoneright. And you know how I close this, baby? I am what? Out.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3, 4.